the questions you've been raising, dear Romy, dear Liz, and exploring together, and Holly was wonderful, the way that she was reviewing and reviewing and taking a look at some of the offerings in our course that she hadn't had a chance to, what with Bar Mitzvah and the storm. And then she's been hit by an event in her family that now she's at home facing. And so we look forward to her return in the coming days, joining us. But the questions you've been exploring together and asking, formulating, are fantastic. These are key key questions. Yes. These are key questions for Jewish education, for religious education of any kind in its own way, Jewish education and Jewish curriculum development. Rak al atzmi l'saper yadati. I only know how to tell about myself, tell what I know, and then perhaps it will have some resonance for you. There might be something in there that you'll want to consider, and I hope not adopt, but adapt to yourself. Rak al atzmi l'saper yadati. I only know how to tell about myself. This is a line from one of Raphaels' poems. Raphael Bluestein, was just known as Raphael. That's who came to this country on what we call the second Aliyah. I'm going upstairs now to where there are more books. And here, let's see. Is this it? No. Is this? Somewhere here should be a book of Raphael's poetry. Let's see. Let's see now. I'm not sure where I put it. A wonderful volume with her poems in her own handwriting. Let's see. One more time here. Let's see. Let's see it right this moment. Let's see if it's over here. So, I don't know why it would be here. Maybe. Okay. All right. So I only know how to tell about myself. Rak al atzmi l'saper yadati. And that's what I can share. And perhaps, as I said, some of it, something of it might resonate for you. Okay, that will have to be an expedition of mine to find where it's hiding. I run into someone. And let's see. Okay. Yeah. Minutes. All right. Well, here's John Dewey. I want to share with you a passage there. Kitchen. Let's see. Somehow. Here we go. Oh. Well, first of all, inclusion. Yeah. This inclusion of students who don't see themselves participating in a certain approach or project or formulation, be it something we're doing in class or something we're working on at home, a so-called assignment. No, my philosophy and practice is to encourage and allow, affirm, celebrate that students would can go their own way. There's not one way for one size fits all. So I might begin, if I want to share that song, Elohim Shali Ratziti Shuteda. I perhaps would start before I share with them the song. I might share with them without telling them that, again, it's the title of the song. I'll just have on a piece of paper or on the board or whatever the phrase Elohim Shali Ratziti Shuteda, and then fill in what I just want you to know. Rak Ratziti. I only wanted you to know. I want you to know what do you want Elohim to know, or if you're not sure of your understanding or relationship or ideas about the reality that we call Elohim, God, divine. You can choose to think about it that way. I just want people I care about to know, my friends and maybe some of my teachers, to know some of my thoughts about what people call God. Something like that. I can have both titles. One is my God. This is I just wanted you to know. Another formulation can be when it comes to questions about God, questions about whether there is or isn't and what it's like, if it is, then just want you to know, I would just like to say that so you can have that second alternative approach, and that will be perfectly fine. Of course, this depends on the school one teaches in. It depends on one's philosophy of education and the learning process. So I hadn't mentioned that, until this point. I mean, we've been talking about, I've been mentioning the how key it is, the philosophy, our philosophy of the subject, so-called subject that we're going to teach. In other words, our interpretation, our take, as we call it, on the subject, But it's not only my take on chapter 1 of Joshua or whatever it is I'm going to teach, or Purim, or Megillat Esther, or whatever. It's also what is my take on the educational process, on the learning process, on education. What's my philosophy of education? So, for me, again, I would want to make room for, if a student says, of any age, from, kindergarten to postdoctorate, for that assignment that we're doing at home, or this song that we're about to sing, I mean, I'm not so comfortable with it. This is good. This is interesting. A person who has his or her own mind, the independence of her own spirit. And so, as I say, I might introduce the song before we get to the song, before I even say we're going to try singing the song together. Just throw out those phrases and have everybody then draw pictures, paint, do handmade midrash, or just write down, and then I say, well, we'll take a few minutes each of us to do that, and then we'll share what we wrote, what we think about this question, about this kind of poem or something, this phrase, my God, this is, I just want you to know. Or again, instead it could be, as it relates to the question of God, what people call God. I just want to say, then you fill in the blank. We'll all fill in the blank. We'll all do it. Of course, then I'll do it also. I'll take that paper and I'll start writing too. And then, of course, I'll go around and just, ask people, see if anybody needs any help or wants to ask a question about what we're doing. And then we'll share it together. And then I'll pass out the song. I'll say, well, I've come across this song, and I'd like to share it with you and see what you think. And maybe we'll try learning it. And if so, some of us might have some suggestions of how to add a different verse or change, some of the words. Yes. So that again, if a child, so I would even initiate that. I mean, for a number of reasons, and or again, sometimes you go ahead and share something like that, but then if a child does then say, or again, whatever age the students are, I don't feel comfortable with that. They say, oh, that's good. You have your ideas. This is good. So, is there a way that you might be able to sing it if we change some of the words or add, another stanza? Maybe that you would sing a solo that we could write together that you might work on, and then you see, how we can include it, which is include you. So this is I think this is a great question that you raised, a great issue. I don't know, who it is or what approach you're familiar with, Romy, where you ask about how much do we let our children express themselves. Again, a wonderful question. This is indeed, as you say, takes us to a deeper level. Indeed, it does. I mean, this is, how much do we let our children express themselves before we tell them, no, it's not like that. It's like this. Or before we tell that they're wrong before they express themselves. So, again, I only know about myself. This is not what I'm doing in so-called teaching and sharing. But rather, I invite students to explore with me perhaps some possibilities, ways of thinking, coming at things that might be different from what they have known until now. But that doesn't mean it's wrong, what they know. It just means we're going to consider something that might be partly or altogether different, and we'll explore it together and see what happens. I say to my college and mostly graduate students, graduate work levels teaching, I say, to take a course, I call it participate in a course. Take a course is too passive, to my mind. But, but to take a course, participate in a course on Islam, you don't in the end have to become a Muslim. Or to take a course on Karl Marx, you don't have to become a Marxist at the end of the course. To take a course on Virginia Woolf, his writing, at the end of the course you don't have to say, and feel that, Virginia Woolf is, one of my, top 10 favorite authors. No. But at the end of a good course, you're going to say to yourself, and maybe want to share with others, that before the course, you really didn't see much depth, if any, in Virginia Woolf's writing. You didn't see much depth, if any, in Islam or in Marxism or whatever the course you're taking in the rabbis of the Talmud. Because again, if it's a good course, you don't know if you agree with it or what you're going to do with it in your life. But it's what I call you've been opened up. You feel that you've been opened up to what I call angles of appreciation. Which, in other words, not necessarily agreement. You don't know yet if you're going to maybe adopt or adapt. I think is what would be best. Parts of this for yourself in some way. Shunryu Suzuki has this wonderful book, Zen Mind, The Beginner's Mind, Zen Japanese Buddhism, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And this is a series of talks that he gave in California, I think it is, the area, where he started a community, a Buddhist community. And we see this over and over again in these talks, where he says such and such and such and such and such, but that's the wrong understanding. The right understanding is such and such and such and such and such. There's nothing wrong with that. This is very good. I think it's not directed at one, person particularly, individually or something. But and I think it doesn't mean, here this is. I think it means according to. Again, right? According to one approach. This or that approach. That's not the right understanding. There's another to be aware that there's another school of thought. It all depends on which school of thought that we're considering. So that's a couple, some thoughts on that. Now, actually, if we look carefully at this song, Retsiti Shite Da, on the one hand, it is a poem, a song whose words involve a direct address to the reality we call the divine. So we're singing about, my God, I want to tell you something. Well, what if one of the children or one of the people, whatever age group, doesn't believe in God, doesn't feel comfortable with that because they're still deciding or they've already decided. So that would be that's a great question. And then I wouldn't want to have that student, sing this. But again, maybe we can explore a way in which they would be able, he or she would be able to. As I suggested now, maybe adding a verse that, a stanza that he or she would, we would write, and we can be of help, maybe, and maybe it'll end up being, 2 or 3 students who feel that way, and they can work on it together. And then we can incorporate that in the song, and then those 3, or all of us, everyone will sing that, or maybe just those 3 students or 1 student in a solo. So there are different ways to include difference that will still more than allow for. I would want to really see celebrating diversity and difference in the curriculum. So I think students can change the curriculum. One educational thinker calls it participate in enacting, E-N-T-A-K-I-N-G, enacting they participate in enacting the curriculum. It gets changed because of suggestions or, yes, explicitly or implicitly, that the so-called teacher picks up on, should lead to change in the curriculum, syllabus, or whatever. But so certainly this is a song, right, where there's a direct address to God. But it's actually a song. The words, yes, are also undermining, really, the conventional idea of God. I was going to say the idea of God, the experience of God. Well, which experience? According to who? And so this also, I think that for anybody who says and thinks, and feels and lives, I believe in God, or I don't believe in God. Well, but what does that mean? I mean, it's the same as, I believe in democracy, as I don't, believe in democracy, or I believe in Zionism, or I don't believe in Zionism. I mean, I believe in advocacy for Israel, or I don't believe in advocacy for Israel. But I mean, even if you say I do believe any of these, I mean, isn't it very general? Janusz Korczak, yes? On my desk there's a photo, actually, of an actor who looks just like him in the film. You see that? Janusz Korczak holding a child, bringing a child to one of his orphans into the University of Warsaw's lecture hall, where he's going to speak about children and the course on the lives of children, the experience of children. Janusz Korczak, here's a sketch that I made of him on a student's paper for a course that I teach every so often, that I share. A course on, we've got flying Buddhas here. Janusz Korczak. There's a wonderful new children's book that was just now written in Poland, and then Ori Orlov has translated it into Hebrew, and it's by Ivana Chmielewska. No, I'm sorry, Chmielewska. Ivana Chmielewska, and it's called The Diary of Blumka. The Diary of Blumka. So look for it. I don't know if there's anybody trying to translate it. I don't think it's happened yet, anyway. Translating it into English from the Polish, but look for it in English, in the Hebrew translation. If you can get a hold of one, if you'll be visiting in Israel, or ask somebody to send it to you, or Janusz Korczak said, we can speak about God or the homeland or patriotism. In other words, with any of these, he says, meaning that we can say, I believe in God, or I believe in the homeland, or I love God, I love the homeland, or whatever it is, a democracy, or progressive education, or whatever it is. He says that doesn't really mean very much. The question is, how do you believe in it? In other words, how do you understand what a homeland is all about, what it involves, what God is all about, what does it involve? So, someone can say, oh, do you believe in God? I just wanted to know, because I know that I do. Okay, but I can say yes to reassure you or whatever, but again, I don't know that it's the same as how you understand God. So this is, I think, one question. Also, the formulation, do I believe in God? I do believe in God. I don't believe in God. I think is more of a Christian, though again, also in Christianity. It all depends which Christian teacher, which Christian theologian, there's different philosophies and experiences of Christianity within Christianity, as there are in Judaism, though Judaism is even more open. The Talmud, characterized by debate and diversity, I think, than many other cultures. But that's the word belief. I believe in. And there's the whole question, do I believe in God? Do I believe in democracy? Do I believe in... What does that mean, really, to ask that, to think about that? I think to me it's kind of, do I believe do I agree with what other people, or maybe a whole tradition, says about whatever? Do I believe in justice, or do I believe in the 1960s, youth movement, youth idealism and revolution in many Western countries, the United States, France, Czechoslovakia, etc. Let's see, do I agree with some other people say? I suppose that's a plausible, that's a good thing to think about. But I'd rather really be thinking about what do I know to be true? What do I know to be true? And notice I changed the word to know. Do I believe in? It makes sense in Christianity that this is key, because Christianity is about Messiah already coming, and the divinity coming and visiting us here directly and intimately through a person, a particular person. And so to be a Christian is to know that. But so it's something that you do have to say, let's see, others have seen this and others have known it, and so do I believe, do I adhere to that? So there it makes sense. But in Judaism, even the Hebrew word emunah, etymologically, in its root, it's related to the word emet. And often it's in a context together with the word yediyah, knowledge, what we know. Of course, we can be wrong about what we know. A psychiatrist helps us maybe, or if it's about God, or a theologian or a rabbi, or helps us, or whatever. And we don't have just one source of helping us to clarify what we think we know, who we think we love, or hate, or very often it's much more complicated, and we're not always so accurate about what we think and think we know or don't know, etc. But it's the emunah is more closer to trust, which is one might say, well, that's very isn't that pretty much belief? But I think it's with an emphasis on action, because of a relationship, that I act upon it. We act upon beliefs too. So I think already there's it affects the formulation of our questions. Already put us on a certain path. And then that word, God, this is probably, it has so much to do with why I speak about, always I call it, the reality we call love or justice or injustice or God. So Liz, I think you're right. These are all just words. But love, justice, God, dignity, yes, the words at their best represents a reality. Points to, at least indicates a reality. I say indicates because very often these kinds of phenomena, they're not just so simple. They're not just clear cut. They don't present themselves fully ready-made and absolutely clear. They involve a presence that also is absent in good part. It hides itself. We can only see its back. We can only catch a glimpse of it, etc. I remember once in teaching, actually for a friend who was ill for that class here in Israel, at a community college for teachers. So I went out to Ashkelon. I left my Jerusalem, went out to Ashkelon to meet these teachers. And it was a course on the holidays, and I think it was Hanukkah or something, so I did something with that. And then, in those years, I was, albeit modern Orthodox, but I wore a kippah, actually a black velvet, type of, because I wanted to kind of say that the Haredi, so-called Haredi world, so-called ultra-Orthodox, they don't have a monopoly on continuity with Judaism. So I can wear the black velvet kippah too, and my talit katan inside, whatever. But and at the end of towards the latter part of the class, one of the students said, and these are secular people, and one of the students said, well, look, this was all very good. This is very interesting. But I don't believe in God. She said, this was in Hebrew, So, what do I do with some of these texts and things? So first of all, I said, well, how much did I really talk about God or even say the word God here? Really, we're looking at texts and interpreting what they involve as to speaking to our certain truths of psychological truths, ethical truths, philosophic truths that have to do with universal kinds of experiences that how going against the odds, Hanukkah. Rabbi Soloveitchik says Hanukkah is all about that we usually assume, and that's the very expression, to go against the odds is impossible or unlikely. But sometimes we can go against the odds, and it's worth trying and striving. And so the Maccabees, the many are given into the hands of the few. That usually, or say, give into the hands of, doesn't always have to be literally, so we've got a few mosquitoes here. It's so warm. We're record temperatures all summer and also now. But, and so there's that buzzing, buzz. I wish it would work by just putting up, some pictures of, on one side of the room, of, I don't know, people's necks or, I don't know, friendly other mosquitoes, and see if that would draw them over to there, but it doesn't really work well. So yeah, belief in so said, I don't believe in God. So what do I do? So first of all, I said, look, did I mention God very much here? Really, we've been approaching these texts and the idea and the word God, the reality it speaks to, as involving issues in our everyday life. Again, such as the many in the hands of the few, which is, it doesn't have to be literal in the sense of a battle, a war like the Maccabees against the Syrian Greeks. So Syrian Hellenists. It can be a minority view in the face of a majority view. Can still win out the day, or at least win its place. It's have to have its own voice. But this is going against the odds. It's not so possible. It's very difficult to achieve. But one can. This is the little candles, the little light. I mean, the little bit of oil. Uh, that's what's the possibility that can, that can keep burning, in the darkness. It's not much. So this is the miracle, that the many in the hands of the few, that the little, that the few, that the small, that we don't think can be sustained, yes, might indeed be sustained and developed. For some, and maybe for all, to come to some enjoyment or appreciation, even if that it's not going to, they're not going to adopt it lock, stock, and barrel. As we said, we don't want just uniformity where everybody just does the same thing. I want to return again to this Ritziti should say does song, because looked at carefully, you know, what is it that the songwriter is saying? We want God to know. I want you to know that when I woke up from my dream of how an angel, or the third stanza, perhaps it's a sailor, malach, not with an aleph kaf, but with chet, a mariner, a sea journeying, sailing person, or being of some sort that comes up from the sea. That can be, an angel as well. Of course, angel, malach, means messenger, literally, but okay, in Hebrew, yes. But, all right, so there's a dream in which the angel comes, the messenger comes, perhaps also either from the sea or from the sky. I've come from the sky in the first stanza. I've wandered many wanderings to bring a blessing of peace to all the children. Or I've come up from the bottom of the sea to bring. I'm carrying a message, a blessing of peace for the children of all the world. And then it says, when I woke up, though, from my dream, when I woke up, from my sleep, I remembered the dream, and so I went outside, l'chapes ma'at shalom, not total peace. I went outside to see if there was a little bit of peace. V'lo haya malach, v'lo haya shalom. But I found that I didn't see any angel out there. I didn't find any angel, and I didn't find any peace. Yes. And I just want you to know that, God. I just wanted you to know. Chalom hazen nishar li kechida. It remains for me a riddle. This dream that I dreamed, that an angel comes and says, a messenger, a divine messenger, a messenger of the divine, of the ultimate, if you want, of the ultimate. I don't think it has to be, some overall power or something. But it does involve some kind of ultimate source or something. Doesn't have to be anything like a human being, nothing like a human being. And yet it's not just an idea. When I stand in prayer, I experience, I feel, I'm over against me, opposite me is this, but it's not anything like a human being. It's infinity. It's eternity. And me standing before that, I'm just, a driven leaf, a passing shadow, as the Unatana Tokef meditation for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim says. So it says, I just want you to know, God, that this dream remains with me, is with me. I'm carrying it now. This dream for peace for all the children of the world. But I'm keeping it. It remains to me as a riddle. So I just wanted you to know, that when I went out into the world, there wasn't even a little bit of peace. Not much of it anyway. Too little a bit of it. There wasn't malach and there wasn't shalom. So this is, to some degree, undermining, or it comes to this issue I was raising. I think this fact that yes, everybody there's different approaches to what does it mean believe, or what does it mean to know, and what does it mean God? What does the word stand for? What is it indicating? Here in this poem song, it's God who is not intervening. He's not making everything okay. Not even trying. I mean, it's not in any direct way. I mean, we learned this from the Holocaust. Emil Fackenheim, the Canadian, I think he was Canadian, and then he made Aliyah, his later part of his life. Came to live here in Israel in the latter part of his life. He said, the Holocaust especially, if God didn't intervene then. So we have to reinterpret, we have to redefine that there can be a reality that we call the divine, ultimate, but it's not human, it's unlike anything we know. And that's also one of the reasons why it doesn't intervene. Because, yes, it's not like a human being that it can decide to change or do something or intervene in the affairs of people. Maimonides is very clear that isn't what it's about. Then there's this song, Mi Ohev Otach Yoter Mimeni, yes, that I've included, also in that new section in the timeline. And there it says, Lama Yesh Milchamot. I'm reading, I don't know, the third stanza, I guess. I don't know if you can see that. It's very dark right on this side of my room, of the salon. Lama Yesh Milchamot Uke'ev. Why are there wars and pain? Lama Elohim Lo Mitarev. Why does God not intervene? Well, because this is a different knowing of God, a different understanding. So again, when we say I believe in God, I don't believe in God, I might believe in God. It depends. That assumes that there's only one approach to what God is all about. It involves the reality that we call God. Take a look at the essays from our first few weeks. That's in the first section of the timeline if you haven't had a chance to. And then the short text from the Talmud, from the Midrash. And then I have those videos where I share how I understand those texts. So many people understand those texts. Those are radical texts. Those are radical. This is a radical song, this song for children, It says, an angel came and told me, bringing peace to all of us. But then when I woke up the next morning, I remembered the dream. I went outside to look for a little bit of peace, at least a little bit, and to look for the angel. But I didn't find there was no angel and there was no peace. So I just wanted you to know, God. Oh, that's all I wanted you to know. Rock, only this. Well, that's a pretty big, little thing you wanted to just let me know, because it flies in the face more than anything of the idea of God. Again, because that's the conventional. That's most people. That's what they're thinking. But so many of our sources and religious thinkers, and religious greats, not only in Judaism but perhaps especially. Read my essay on my book review essay on Emmanuel Levinas that I've included, that has the title "That Law," which etc. So again, we can ask what age group of children are we talking about, but we do that too soon, is what we do too often in Jewish education. Because the first thing is we haven't clarified yet enough, we haven't developed yet enough, more specifically, what we mean by chapter 1 of Joshua, what we see there, how we understand it, what do we know about it, of depth, of nuance and some richness. Again, doesn't mean that we believe in chapter 1 of Joshua in the sense of that, I know it's the greatest thing, one of the great works of literature, and it's going to be one of my favorite books. No, it doesn't. Again, we don't have to agree. It's not about, is one right and one wrong. It's about even if I sometimes, or others, the Zen Buddhist monk, teacher says, and Jewish text will say, it isn't this, it's that. Okay, but it doesn't mean that we're saying definitely that's what it is for all people or isn't. We're exploring together. We're checking it out, and we're checking out a different approach. Want to come along? Come along. Not want to come along? We'll try every which way to include you, so that you'll feel that you can. But in the end, sometimes somebody doesn't want to, so they don't want to. We'll find something else for them, another class that they can take or do during my class or whatever. And I do that sort of thing. When I go to the administration or principal or headmaster of the school or whatever. I mean, usually, again, I'm teaching graduate students in the university, but sometimes it's undergraduates or it's whatever. I just would end with this at this point. It's a little like here in Jerusalem, if someone comes up to me and says, "Is this a good idea, Steve? I'm going to take the bus number 9 and then switch to the 4. So, I say, I'm back over at this side now. So I say, that could be a good idea. That could be, not a very good idea to get on the bus number 9 and then go change to the 4. It depends, where do you want to go? And the problem is, if you only know in general, well, I want to get off at the stop where, my students are proud of being Jews, or my students know that vis-a-vis the Holocaust, never to forget. Well, but that's quite general. Or I want them to believe in God. Okay, but again, never to forget what? Or what are some of the ideas about God that you see them wanting, or that you want to see them considering, being aware that exists out there? Until you're more specific, then it's hard to say, get on the bus number 9 and switch to the 4, because once you get to the 4, there's so many bus stops to get off. And if you only know in general, your students might get off at what you think is the wrong stop. So you got to know with more specificity. If you only have, remember with my teaching of the Kedushat Haaretz, sharing some ideas about the holiness, the sacredness of the land of Israel. Um, there, I think I shared with you that I only had 15, 20 minutes, 25 minutes to plan it, right? They came to me at lunch in the Chadar Ochel, with 500, people in it or something. And so, and then that's to lead this discussion or exploration, to facilitate it in another, 20, 25 minutes. Okay, but I'm going to invest most, I'm going to devote myself most of the time, even most of that time, first figuring out, clarifying what might I see for myself that has richness and depth in a compelling way in this whole issue, or this whole phenomenon, this whole perspective of the holiness of place. What is that all about? Until I come to something, rich, and that means also specific, moving from the general to the specific, then, I don't have anything yet. But once I do arrive at something like that, I say, oh, wow, now I can go with this. Now if I want to show a movie or do a role-playing or do small group work with what I call a think sheet, questions that, you first, what about this, what about that? And I can think of a lot of, if I want to show part of a film or a whole film, I can think right away of. But go back to that first week. The first section of A Serious Man is about, God isn't intervening in the world. God isn't making everything clear to us. Meaning isn't under every bush and behind every tree. There's stuff that we don't know what the meaning is. There's stuff that we can figure out part of the meaning is. And there's stuff that there's no meaning. I mean, ultimate meaning or something. And when many people have different ideas about it. And then, I don't know, I guess we make our own meaning to some degree, but also, in maturity, perhaps we live according to this particular philosophy of life. We learn to live and be creative and loving and caring for one another, also in the face of lack of, meaning and worse. So, again, then I'm going to think about the other questions of who is the student. And, going back to that question, Liz and all, in the 1960s, where A Serious Man, the film, is set, the characters there, young people were more into the whole sexual revolution, sexual awareness, and politics and meaning was even more. How do we come to understand? How we do understand meaning in terms of government and war and peace and etc. Through music and other forms of human exploration and consideration and expression. But friends are still, I think, for young people is so important. So I asked them for the Joshua, and if you were Joshua's friend, what would you say to him at this time in chapter 1 of Joshua? If you start feeling confident. As far as the middle class goes, if your students aren't very aware that they're in the middle class, that there is a poverty class and a struggling between poverty and middle class, and that there's a wealthy class. That might be a way to start. There would be a curriculum idea. How to become aware, develop, 2 or 3 lessons, so-called meetings on what does it mean to be in the middle class, you know, or to belong to any something. Doesn't it mean that you don't belong to the other somethings? So what are the other somethings when it comes to, because middle class is what? Economics. The things you can have, which can affect the things we can be, become, who we can be and become. It does affect it. How does it affect it? Explore that, you know, with your students, with our students. What can we do to learn more about those in poverty and or struggling between poverty, above poverty, but not in the middle class? Do we do some volunteer work together with the soup kitchen or the so-called, you know, food distribution, or on the weekends building low-income housing, you know, for people, for homeless people, etc. Then how do you get to know something about the wealthy if you don't have wealthy relatives, or who does, you know? Meanwhile, don't say I haven't said anything about Judaism. I'm suggesting, you know, just do this, and then at a certain point, you know, with all the activities involved and thinking about and the experiences that will be involved, and some of the texts that you bring, or pieces from film, etc. Then you say, well, I mean, this is, we've been saying, this has to do with ethics, this question, has to do with caring about other people in society who are different, and seeing how we can help one another, work together, and help, you know, to pull people up. You know, how does a person find themselves in one of these three classes, socioeconomic classes? Is it merely our choice by what we do or don't do, or does it also involve very often factors that are not our choosing? If so, that's even more profound inequality and unfairness. Well, in Judaism, we, you know, ethics and social justice is, you know, plays a very key role. Let's look at some texts about that in the Bible, in the Talmud, and then do this wonderful Musar movement, where we confront ourselves see ways in which we're not developing ethically. There's a value judgment. You know, you're wrong. How are you wrong? How might you better ourselves ethically, do that together and help one another? So they didn't do much about perhaps which socioeconomic group do you belong to, but certainly they were looking at how can I help those of the lower socioeconomic situation. How can I be of help to our fellow people? That's part of ethics. That would be part of what the Musar movement was exploring. I think it's very important, Liz, when you are planning your philosophy of again, to move from the general to the specific. What are some of your favorite, you know, one or two stories about Rabbi Israel Salant? What is one or two of the favorite practices, you know, that they practiced together? You know, such as the one I mentioned, having a little notebook that you carry around, you know, and write down. The way they did it was just failings, but why not good moments in our interactions with people? So, all right, this is all very much, again, don't look at this all at once. I should have said that at the beginning of the video, you know. It's too much. Take it in breaks and smaller parts, and with, you know, some vodka in between, or, you know, screaming or running down the street, you know, yelling, how do I get out of here? No, oh no, not another one of Steve's videos, you know. Okay, so, you know, we'll continue. But I can't emphasize enough, connect, engage with all of those offerings in our first section, as is the film. and as is the Seder scene from Woody Allen film. All of that, and what's most striking is the Talmudic passages, the rabbinic passages, and the celebration of finitude. It's not plenitude, excuse me. Yes, it's celebration of finitude. That's the opposite of plenitude. And this involves also the reality that we call God. Instead of course, you say that's by definition infinitude. Yeah, this is true, but in a way, we're making it more finite because we're saying what we can know about the divine is the reality we call the divine. The ultimate is very limited, and it's not like any human being, not like anything we know. Anything we know. Again, take a look at the chapter in that section of the timeline where I brought together some stuff for some sources for Liz about the Musar movement and ethics. Take a look at that chapter of Hilary Putnam's book, his chapter on Levinas and what God demands of us, what ethics demands of us. And my essay is it's just 9 pages, the book review essay that I just put in our new section of the timeline on a book review essay on Levinas, and it speaks to this emphasis away from direct religious experience, direct experience of the divine, because that's not like anything we know. This is called monotheism. Not comparing the divine to anything like what we know. So that means there's not much, we could catch some glimpse, but it's through opening ourselves to other people who are in need especially, and to new ideas that we haven't thought before or haven't thought about yet. This is to open ourselves to difference, and in that sense we can catch a glimpse of the ultimate difference, the reality that we call God or the divine. So out of all that, I leave you with all that maybe some of it will resonate for you in some way. So thanks for being with me in this distance learning way, and yet perhaps that lessens the difference in some ways, maybe enlarges the difference in some ways. Maybe that's not just good or bad, either of those, but a bit of both. Okay. So we'll try to continue and continue and continue.